there's an emphasis on policy implementations. You would know that the 54th National Conference resolved on a number of things, and through our regional conferences and other processes, the ANC in Gauteng has actually looked into detail in terms of that. And I think one of the things that's going to come out from this briefing is how the ANC in Gauteng will actually be championing some of the things in terms of further engagements at the provincial conference. Colleagues, are we ready? We're just waiting on you. Okay, they are ready. Without any further ado, I'll hand over to our officials, to Comrade Hopapo, to take us through the statement.
Good morning. I'll call you ladies and gentlemen of the media. The statement is as follows. Today marks to the ANC Gauteng's 13th Provincial Conference. The conference will be held at St. George Hotel in Irene on the 20th to the 22nd July 2018. The Provincial Conference will be a culmination of several organizational milestones that included the rejuvenation and reorganization of branches in all the 529 wards in Gauteng in May and June. National launch of #Tumamina campaign in Gauteng in May, and the convening of 5 successful regional conferences that took place between the 29th of June and the 8th of July 2018. In all the above-mentioned activities, the focus of the ANC structures has been on how to strengthen the capacity of the movement to take up the daily issues of concern to communities and to address the socio-economic problems facing all the people of Gauteng. The draft resolutions coming from the biannual branch general meetings, and regional conferences have located the people's problems and their yearning for a better life at the core of what will be discussed by the 13th Provincial Conference. The PEC has congratulated all the newly elected members, that is the PEC which we held on Friday, newly elected members of the branch executive committees and regional executive committees. All the branches and regions are now ready to serve communities with renewed energy and a fresh mandate of implementing the resolutions of the ANC's 54th National Conference. The PEC is pleased that in all the 5 regions, the ANC is revitalized, better organized, and ready for the 2019 elections. The PEC is aware that some of the members have either lodged disputes or are taking the ANC to court on the outcomes of some of the regional conferences. Together with the ANC National Office, the PEC will defend the organization in any court action instituted against the ANC. We are confident that courts will find in our favor because all procedures were scrupulously followed and disputes were heard and adjudicated and properly and fairly by PEC and NEC members. While we respect the courts as the final arbiters of disputes in a democratic and law-governed society, we urge members to also respect the internal processes of the organization. We warn against those who want to keep the ANC busy in courts so that we have no time to pay attention to the issues affecting society. Large sums of money are being used to destabilize our movement and make sure that it has no time to prepare for the 2019 elections. Accordingly, we have decided that those who take the ANC to court and lose must pay the full legal cost of those court actions. In its meeting held on Friday, 13th July 2018, the PEC reviewed the final preparations for the provincial conference. The conclusion of the PEC is that logistically, organizationally, and politically, Gauteng is ready to hold its 13th provincial conference. The PEC approved the theme of the conference as follows: Unity, Integrity, Service and Renewal, 100 years of Nelson Mandela and Albertina Sisulu. The PEC also approved the organizational report, finance report, the base document, and several sectoral discussion papers that will serve to guide and facilitate discussions at the provincial conference. All these documents frame the key issues that will be debated and decided by the conference in order to give concrete effect to the decisions of the 54th National Conference. The cardinal point of focus of all discussion papers is specific challenges and socio-economic problems facing the people of Gauteng. The conference will pay sufficient attention to the unity, renewal and the modernization of the ANC. The conference will also discuss proposals on the political development and educational advancement of all the current members and leaders, together with attracting new, talented, educated and committed members who are keen to serve the people. Some of the proposals are about systematic work and targeted recruitment of talented young people across race, class and gender, especially those in the higher education institutions and in the various professions. Going forward, it is clear that talent, skills, ethics, and commitment to serve the people will become among the most important defining features of a member of the ANC in Gauteng. This is part of an effort to return to the values and qualities that define both Nelson Mandela and Albertina Sisulu. With regard to socio-economic challenges facing the people of Gauteng, the 13th Provincial Conference will leave no stone unturned. The following issues will be debated and decisions taken on them. The first one is the plan to implement radical socio-economic transformation in Gauteng. The state of the Gauteng economy, identifying steps to increase employment, empowerment, exports and absorption of youth into the labor market. Major investment in mega infrastructure projects that will fundamentally change the spatial landscapes and economic geography of Gauteng. Plan to address the cost of living, fuel hikes, cost of food, energy, water and other basic necessities. This includes the exorbitant cost of data, #data must fall, the impact of e-tolls must fall, and VAT increases on households. That is, the #VAT on basic foods must fall. The ANC must lead these campaigns and call on government to intervene. Embarking on a skills revolution to address the mismatch between education, the needs of the economy, and challenges of the fourth industrial revolution. Gauteng province must drastically increase its investment in scarce skills, especially the skills required to leverage the opportunities of the fourth industrial revolution. The need to build new education and training institutions in the new economic nodes, e.g., University of Science and Technology in Ekurhuleni. We need to dramatically increase scale of the youth employment, skills development and entrepreneurship initiatives in order to reach 2 million unemployed young people of Gauteng over the next 5 years. #Tsepo 1 million needs to be massified and rolled out in every township, informal settlement and suburb. Sector-based approach to economic transformation to rapidly increase the proportion of blacks and women ownership, management and control of the economy, reducing the carbon footprint on Gauteng's economy, addressing food, water, energy security in Gauteng, rooting out corruption in the public and private sectors through a comprehensive campaign to promote integrity and ethics and fight corruption in partnership with civil society. Rapid land release program which will include expropriation of land without compensation in order to address urban land hunger, the development of new human settlements, industrial development and urban agriculture. Critical review of the state of healthcare in Gauteng, urgent turnaround plan and the decisive rollout of the national health insurance. Finalization of the establishment of the provincial state bank in collaboration with municipalities. Increased levels of support for broad-based black economic empowerment, SMMEs, and township economy revitalization. Developing a social compact between government, business, labor, academia, and civil society to facilitate the following short-term approach to the fourth industrial revolution. Campaign to ensure that 50% of all senior managers in government, the public sector and private sector are women. Campaign and strengthen the criminal justice system interventions in dealing with gender-based violence. Campaign and programs focusing on empowering the girl children and young women. Early childhood development prioritization to allow children to spend at least 2 compulsory years at this level before starting with grade 1. With regard to international solidarity campaigns, the ANC Gauteng province needs to be more visible in supporting the people of Palestine and Western Sahara. Plan to deal with rapid urbanization and immigration. Legalization of artisanal miners, that is the Zamazamas. On logistical arrangements, registration and accreditation for the 13th Provincial Conference will start on the 19th July 2018 at 10 o'clock at Swane Event Center. The conference will start on Friday, 20th July 2018 at 10 o'clock and end on Sunday, 22nd July 2018. We've already stated that the venue is St. George Hotel in Irene, Tshwane. We're expecting close to 1,600 delegates and guests to attend the conference. Only duly accredited delegates will be allowed into conference venue. There will be open and closed sessions as outlined in the conference program, which you'll later get. The media will be advised accordingly on which sessions they are allowed to attend. No alcoholic beverages, narcotics, or other mind-altering substances shall be allowed in the conference venue, and no alcohol shall be sold in the bar during the duration of the conference. The PEC was satisfied with all logistical and political preparations. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our briefing. You will be getting copies of the statement shortly. I think we're going to take questions from the floor. What we're going to do is that we'll allow a show of hands for those that have an interest in raising questions. When you are appointed to raise your question, introduce yourself and the media house from which you come, and then we'll take them. Now we're doing the first round, maybe we'll do about 3 rounds or 4. Let's start with the first round and allow raised hands. I've noted one hand there, a hand there, and a hand there, and a hand at the back. There's 4 hands for this round. Can we start, Hajra, with you? Just introduce yourself accordingly. It's 1, 2, it's 3. My sister that side with the green top, and you are the last one at the back. You can start.
Thank you, Madam Tale. Hajra from Power 987. A question for the chairperson. In terms of the principle of unity, how does the ANC Gauteng leadership see the issue of contest or no contest at conference? Secondly, for the provincial secretary, the ANC in Gauteng has never been shy to speak about economic issues. And if I listen to the narrative from our callers at Power, they're being suffocated by the fuel price, and of interest or growing concern to them is the VBS Bank. So does the ANC have a position on both these issues going into conference, as they did on e-tolls in previous years before conference? And then a question for the treasurer. The issue of gender parity has always been paramount for the ANC Gauteng's leadership as well as the party's national leadership. How does the issue of gender parity, what direction is the leadership given going into conference?
Okay, second hand,
Tiki Madia from News 24. It's a tiny one. For the secretary, you're speaking now about how large sums of money are being used to destabilize the movement. I just wanted to get the insight from the ANC. Where does the ANC suspect this is coming from? Thank you.
And then just a follow-up on that question, Cindy from Afro Worldview. In terms of you mentioned that people are delaying processes and taking the ANC to court and the likes. Can you give us clarity if there are any pending court cases and where they emanate from, which regions?
was the last hand at the back?
CNBC Africa, it's also a small one. With regards to economic outlook, I feel like Gauteng residents want to know that at least the leadership of the African National Congress has its ideas set on what will be economic drivers of the province, new economic drivers that will get us there. And I don't feel like that's an issue that we have dealt with. Also, acting chairperson Makura mentioned this during the state of the province address, the issue of defaults. Just how much power does ANC Gauteng have with regards to the issue at all? Because I feel like it's been bandied about lots of times, and yet we are still to find any kind of finality on it. How much power do you have with regards to a national issue, essentially?
Thank you. I'll take you to the second round. Can I allow our panel to take the questions? just 4 questions from 4 different media houses.
The provincial secretary will start, and then treasurer, you will follow, and then I will be the last.
We've made it clear that as a province we don't have problems with contests, as long as those contests are done within the allowed guidelines of the organization. There's no problem with people contesting any position in the organization. It's part of the organization's democratic processes. So contest does not mean you are destroying unity. The branches will then decide who should be the leaders of the organization, both as officials and in the PC. So that's our stance, and we reiterate that position. Where do we suspect? Our statement is saying that we led a very open and transparent process where we established dispute resolution committees in the 5 regions, adjudicated by PEC members. And there was an appeal process by NEC employees in our province where decisions were made. And they were actually not informal. It was not informal process. Hearings were held on disputes, irrespective of how you could think of a dispute. They were held, those dispute resolution processes, determinations were made. People appealed to the NEC members. NEC members upheld decisions of the dispute resolution committees. In some instances, they actually reversed them. Where, for example, a branch has to rerun, the dispute resolution committee says no, the appeal says yes, it must rerun. That happened. Decisions are made. So we think that when you engage in an internal process of an organization and decisions are made you don't like, you can't now say run and say, because some of the issues people will say, we're never given hearings, people don't want to listen to us. We go to court, we'll defend all of the conferences in the province, we'll defend the provincial conference. Linked to that is the issue of the interdict, which people attempted, some of our members attempted on the Egoruleni conference. It was lost on the 1st of July, that interdict. They are trying to go back to court to review the conference. We are defending that outcome of that conference. There's also people who have been given a notice that they will apply for a review of the CDBN conference, who are defending that conference also. Because you can't participate in a process and the outcome you don't like, then you run to court. When you participated fully in the process, including adoption of credentials in the conference, everything, so the outcome you don't like, you then run to court. Because we think our processes they can't be perfect, but we think we have tried our best to ensure that the process towards the conferences are open, transparent. But decisions which are made in the processes, some people may not like. And if you don't like those decisions, you can run to court. It's clear. If you go to court, you've got a senior counsel, you've got an advocate, but your resource base, you don't have resources. Where are you go? Who's going to fund that court case? It means there are people who are funding the court cases. Because if a member of the ANC is unemployed and then takes a case to court, with an advocate or maybe with a senior counsel, it's very clear that there's somebody who's financing that campaign. So that's why we're saying those who take ANC to court and lose cases, they must pay the legal costs. If they are not able to pay, we will have to attach their assets and consider other options the ANC have. Because we have got a lot of work to do than spend time in courts over people who refuse to accept internal processes of the organization. That cannot be accepted. That you want to participate, and when things you don't like come out, you then want to actually then take our time in courts. We are confident that the courts will rule in our favor because of what we have done in preparing for this conferences.
Yeah, on the issue of gender parity, you will be aware that the 50% gender representation is policy of the ANC. It's not a choice of an individual. But also going to the conference itself, choosing the delegates in terms of our guidelines, we need to have that gender parity starting from there. For example, if you have 2 delegates, 1 should be a woman. But it says at least, it means 2 can be women, but it can't be men only. That can go. But then if you have 3, unfortunately, there's no 1.5 person, 1.5. So what? encouraging. In fact, we do have scenarios where in some branches it's only women who are delegates. So that is actually encouraged, including the election of leadership.
Let me just emphasize, ladies and gentlemen, that from where we sit, over the past 2 months, the ANC has reorganized itself, and we are revitalized. We have a lot of fresh energy in our structures across the province, and in particular in the municipalities. We have lost Johannesburg and Tshwane. We have a lot of fresh energy. We have leadership collectives in the different regions. Those leadership collectives have what it takes as a province to comfortably win the 2019 elections and continue to serve the people of our province. And it is against that background and that sense that our organization is back on track. We suffered severe setbacks, particularly in the 2016 local government elections. We also, in 2014 elections, also significantly lost support. So we are in a position in the context of the 54th National Conference of the ANC, and the energy that came out of that conference, and the energy that's coming out of these regional conferences, these branch general meetings, and indeed the energy that's going into our provincial conference. We are confident that the ANC in Gauteng is back on track. And it is on that basis that, Hajra, I will deal with you, just add to what the provincial secretary was saying, that we're not worried about contestation for leadership. In fact, we're very confident that this contestation is going to give us the best and most talented team that we can ever get in this province. And many of you may think that because the 2014 conference, there was no contest. And I'm saying many of you may not remember 2010 conference was highly contested. 2007 conference was highly contested. So you may think that when there's contestation, it is like things, the wheels are coming off. No, we thrive in that, actually. We thrive in that. Most of the conferences we have, in fact, it is only 2 conferences. That's the 2004 and the 2014 conference, 10 years in between. Only 2 conferences where there was no contestation. The rest of the conferences, there was a very dynamic, vibrant, and robust contestation for leadership. And I can even tell you who contested for which position with who in those conferences, and we never worried. We came out of those conferences still solid. So the question of unity is not a function of whether there's contestation or not. Unity is as Madiba said when he wrote a letter to the ANC when it had its conference in 1985. He wrote a letter from prison. He said unity is the bedrock on which the ANC was founded. So unity is not something we discussed only for conference, and that when there's contestation there's no unity. We discuss unity every day, and the unity in the ANC is whether we have a common commitment and common purpose to respond rapidly to the issues facing South Africans. That's the basis on which, if others think that it is not important to address the socio-economic problems, whereas some think it is. If others think that it's not important to address corruption when some think it is, then that's the basis on which we will talk about disunity. But standing for elections and members being nominated and accepting nomination and then contesting is not the basis for unity. Of course, we always caution. There are lobbies in the run-up to conferences. Once conference elects leadership, those lobbies must dissolve themselves so that we work on the basis of a team. But contestation often gives you the best you can ever get. There's a leader in the ANC who's very critical of what he calls leadership by arrangement, and that if people just simply get into conferences and then they have agreed, sometimes it doesn't often give you the best. It's just about who's got strong lobby groups. We are critical of that. Of course, contestation is not for its own sake. It's to help bring to the fore what members think. And we're very happy. I can tell you we're very happy that we're going to emerge from this conference much, much stronger and more responsive to the issues of the ordinary man and woman on the street in every part of Gauteng province. And this takes me to the second issue of the cost of living issues. They are high on the agenda of our conference. You can see them here. So the issues that the provincial secretary is going through there, whether it's data, young people, data is like bread and food for young people. The cost of data, we have spoken about this issue of cost of data for too long. And often there's not much, whether it's the issue of e-tolls. E-tolls also belong to the scheme of set of issues that are about the cost of living issues. For those who travel on the roads in Gauteng, the small business people, the workers who have cars, professionals who travel on our roads, working in one part of the province but living in another. They spend too much money. The e-tolls contribute to the cost of living issues, and the other VAT increase, fuel increases, and related issues about the cost of basic foodstuffs. So these issues certainly are on the conference agenda. There is the question that also was raised about VBS. We as the ANC will talk about this coming from different angles. We obviously have two municipalities in Gauteng that are amongst those that have put money into this. I think what has come out as the story of how the money, including the money, this investments, savings of households, of hard-working men and women, especially in the rural areas, and also public funds that have been put, how this money has been used is obscene. That's what we can say. It's objectionable. It is obscene, it's objectionable, it's unacceptable. There should be no financial institution that can just use hard-earned money. And I can tell you, I know what I mean when I say hard-earned money. Those, especially the women in the rural areas of Limpopo who have put their savings and the stokvels and the societies, they work so hard. If you drive on the road to Toyando, you will see them there. They sell every day. Even at night, they are working very hard. Their savings cannot be used in the way that it was. That's why we're saying it's obscene, it's objectionable, it's unacceptable. And the authorities are dealing with the matter. So we can't do much as a conference. All we can say is that includes, in the province we know, government has instituted through Gauteng Provincial Treasury an investigation into how the money of the municipalities in the West Rand found its way into this. There are many people who are disappointed that what could have been a black bank, what could emerge as an important financial institution, by sheer greed, has landed in the trouble that it is in now, and there should be consequences. Many people feel disappointed that an institution that would have played, this is the time in our economy that we need institutions, particularly black financial institutions that will help contribute to transformation, that will harness the savings of people, deploy those savings to economic transformation and empowerment. And the least we expected is to see how these resources and this money, including the savings from the the PIC. This money belongs basically to workers, including how this money was itself used. So the law enforcement agencies must deal with the matter. The regulators have been seized with this. I know the Reserve Bank has been seized with this matter of VBS. As I say, it is a big disappointment for many of us who worry every day that the transformation of South Africa's economy gets undermined simply by sheer greed. And that's, again, greed has come to the fore. If you see what those who are involved in this have done, it shames us as those who are seeking change, who are pursuing change. You hear us talk about the provincial state bank in this, as the provincial secretary was reading there. So these institutions are very, very important. You can't push transformation unless the transformative forces are also have their footprints in the financial institutions that are so crucial. Gender parity is not a question only for the provincial treasurer, Hajra. As she said correctly, it's a constitutional matter. It's in the constitution of the ANC, and it is a matter that the provincial conference will be seized with. The issues affecting women are very top on the agenda of our conference. You could hear that articulated in our statement. And some of those issues have to do with when we talk about rapid land release. So some of the regional conferences discussed, how do we make sure that women are not left behind? In this program of rapid land release, where we want people to own assets, and I want to emphasize that it is not ANC policy to nationalize all the land, that the land must be owned by the state. I see often, particularly the DA leader, always misrepresent ANC policy deliberately to equate ANC policy to EFF policy. No. So we want rapid land release and the land reform program, and this major process that we are undertaking as a country now must ensure that households have an asset base. We need to break this generational poverty to have a situation where there's no single South African who doesn't have an asset. Currently, people who have assets is essentially a small section of our population. Black people, since 1994, yes, there's the black middle class is trying to build an asset base, but most of us are highly indebted. We know that these assets we own, whether it's a house, those are essentially owned by the banks. So our land release program must put the first major asset that every household must use should be a piece of land that you own. And that's why in Gauteng we emphasize the rapid land release program is going to ensure that we put a piece of land to everyone who wants to build a house for themselves. Yes, we will continue to build houses for those who can't through our program of mega human settlements. But many people say, give us land. And I will be able to announce how many stands we are going to give, serviced stands. We are going to give to the different, in different municipalities over the next 6 months. We are ready with that plan. We have done lots of planning, rapid land release. We're going to allocate stands to those who want to build for themselves, simultaneously as we build. And then there are businesses, in the townships especially, where people have come to the fore. If I was to get a piece of land, I will be able to grow my business in the township and employ more people in the township. I will be able to manufacture. The stuff I'm manufacturing, people are manufacturing furniture from the back rooms. And we have identified this land that we own, all government-owned land. We have also identified the land owned by state-owned enterprises, but we have also identified the land we want to expropriate without compensation. So we will come out of this ANC conference with very refined details about the way forward for Gauteng. We're not going to delay on that. I think the critical question about the court battles, we satisfied that here in Gauteng everything has been done by the book in accordance with the procedures of the ANC. That's why we're very satisfied that going to court we will be able to win these cases. Many of you may know that we emphasize procedures in this province. We emphasize we need to respect the Constitution. Anyone who complained must be heard, and all the complaints have been heard, they have been listened to, there have been decisions made about whether the complainant was right or not, and when people are not happy, we say to them, go to our national office. And our national office has a National Dispute Resolution Committee led by the Deputy Secretary General. We have also given those who were not happy an opportunity. Go to the national office. They have appeared there. And the national office has also ruled on this, many of these cases. Some of them it's still finalizing, like the Sidibeng one. But it has ruled on Johannesburg. It has had those ones in Ekurhuleni. That is the reason we are confident that even if anyone may end up in court, taking us to court, yes, we live in a law-governed society. We accept the courts are the arbiters on disputes, so we will never attack the courts. They must do so. We will go to court and defend our organization and the integrity of our own processes, because these processes have integrity. We very believe so. We have done everything according to rules, and our processes have integrity. So we are proceeding to our provincial conference, clear that even if anybody may try to interfere with that by going to court, we ourselves will go to court, and we're very confident that we will do well. On the issues of the economic Arab, I think we're giving you a sense. There's a discussion document that on economic transformation. A great deal more detail will be discussed at the conference. You know, in Gauteng, we understand this economy very well. We have looked at the economy sector by sector. We know which sector has what potential. We have also been working over the past 4 years with various industry leaders, sector by sector. And we have what we call action labs. We have already seen in some sectors the potential of sectors. All those sectors. I don't have to go through those sectors one by one. The provincial conference will look at that in great detail and say, we see what we have been doing in government, but the results, where are the results, and where do we need to double our efforts, and where do we need to make a shift in some of the things we were doing. And one of the key issues emerging is that we want this to drive large-scale investments in corridors, in nodes where we know if we bring government infrastructure investment in an area where we know certain sectors are located, we over the next 10 years we will unleash the potential of the economy in that area. So in all the 5 corridors of Gauteng, we have proposals very targeted, and we're going to emerge from the provincial conference with all the details of what needs to be done. We also want to invest. We want to, particularly the public resources we have, we should do big mega investments that we have done over time. We do that. We have done that in human settlements, what we call mega human settlements. These nodes, we are pushing very, very hard, but it takes time. Some of this takes time, and it will. In fact, we think we are just at a point in Gauteng, even given the mood in the country, where these investments are going to take off in a very big way. In the different nodes in the Val, in Ekurhuleni, in the West Rand, in Johannesburg, and in Tshwane, we are at a point where these investments will take off. There's lots of frustration about e-tolls, I can tell you, in the ranks of the ANC. There's lots of frustration. Because it is a matter that has been discussed a lot. There's lots of frustration, but you can't solve a problem through frustration. So we believe conference, the 2014 conference said the e-tolls are not acceptable. So that's what we said in 2014. Now, the journey since 2014 has involved lots of to's and fro's up to this year when we've now tabled the matter with our national government again, with the president. But because this matter affects the people of Gauteng, conference is going to have its bite. And as I said to you, there is a lot of frustration that this is one matter that cost, amongst the many things that cost us votes in 2014, in 2016, is the matter of e-tolls. We know that, amongst the many issues. And there are many. Research of the ANC pointed out those issues. Amongst them was the issue of e-toll. So we can't go into that conference and come out without having to deal with it. I don't know what the conference will say. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think the ANC in Gauteng is really back on its 2 feet. The conference is taking place. We're very confident that there's no issue affecting the people of Gauteng that will not be discussed by that conference. Give me one issue that is troubling the people of Gauteng, which will not be discussed by that conference. So that is a gathering that's going to deal with every aspect of life in Gauteng province. And I think we often say that when the ANC meets in Gauteng, everybody watches what is going to come out there. We are very confident that we will emerge from our 13th provincial conference more rejuvenated ourselves. We can feel that already. We feel that energy here with ourselves. We are already more rejuvenated. And we are ready for the 2019 elections.
The second round of questions, I've started this that I have not asked. I've mentioned to you earlier. The two of you, 1, 2, so 1, 2, 3, it's 4, it's 5, it's 6. You have the sixth one. Can you start that to the side? The same procedure is introduce yourself, the media house, and then your question.
Okay. My name is Mutanyani Fu from SABC. Question to the chairperson or acting chairperson. Some ANC youth league in the province were reportedly aggrieved by your recent pronouncement that you have asked the SIU to investigate, allegations of issue of tenders by your MEC, Maile, and they viewed it they perceived that as an attempt from your side to block him from contesting you. Just my first question. My second question is on the former MEC Brian Hlongwa, whether is he going to allow to stand, to contest any position in the PAC, despite the fact that there are serious allegations of corruption being investigated against him. Thanks.
My name is Steven from Mapepeza Media. I have two short questions. The one is to our treasurer. In terms of Gauteng ANC's position in the open tender bill, which was sent to the public for comments, we haven't heard your position in terms of Gauteng, in terms of your support or rejection of the open tender bill, which is in the provincial legislature for comments. And then to our chairperson, in terms of your sector-based approach to transformation, will you actually be using the same approach as you've been using as provincial government to visit the captains of industry and tell them that as the ANC, we want this from you guys, we want you to transform here and here and here? Or will you be having a more lighter approach, sending proposals, or how is it going to play out? Thanks.
Gapsile Khanyi from GauTV News. To add on to the question that you asked about some of the ways that you'll be taking with regards to the developments that you'll be making, I just wanted to ask about the healthcare centers. What is the approach that you're going to be using in terms of that and some of the facilities that are being vandalized at this current moment? And when it comes to the training and job experience, how are you trying to approach that situation, seeing that currently they're saying that they're fighting for jobs that don't say that they want experience? So how are you trying to get people jobs without experience also? And then speaking of radical transformation, I just want you to be specific in terms of the actions that you're taking towards that in general as to the South African states at this current moment. Thank you.
Two hands this side.
All right. Good afternoon, and thank you for taking my question. It's Bonolo from Network Vierenvliedag. With regards to the ANC's state of readiness to contest the elections next year, the latest Ipsos survey data reveals that while the ANC enjoys a 60% support rating at the moment among the electorate, concerns about the stability of the party's leadership persist. And some of it can be attributed to perceptions that the president is struggling to assert his authority on the ANC as well as the presidency. And the litany of court battles in the province, Eastern Cape, and recently in KZN feed into that perception that perhaps not every ANC member has accepted rather the leadership of the president. Now, should this situation persist or worsen, could this be a liability for the president's attempts to win over the voters come next year?
Yes.
I'm Sasha from the Business Day. I have two questions. The first is, are you going to be discussing the ANC in opposition? You are in opposition in your two biggest metros in this province. Are you going to be assessing the performance of your party in the two big municipalities, Johannesburg and Tshwane? And obviously that's going to impact quite significantly on your performance next year, how you have performed in opposition. So, what is your policy proposals around that? And the second question is also with regard to the ANC nationally, the perceptions that my colleague just spoke about, that, with all the court battles, the internal battles in the ANC, we're not hearing a lot about the organizational renewal that you spoke so much about at your conference in December. We're not seeing it. We're definitely not seeing it. Is Gauteng going to be putting forward any proposals on, renewing the ANC? Your proposals have been taken on board in the past. For example, the Integrity Committee. What's coming out of Gauteng on the organizational side to help the ANC at national level? Thanks.
Okay. I think I've taken all the hands. Yeah.
Yeah, just same order will do.
Yeah, the ANC fully supports the open tender bill because it's part of the 2014 conference in terms of transparent government, which also deals with corruption, because if things are not open, people then go and really deal in corners, kickbacks are issued, people complain about outcomes of tenders which are not rational and fair. So we want an open tender system in the entire government, actually. So the proposals which the provincial government did was informed by the decisions of the 12th provincial conference on strengthening transparency and ethics within government and how government does things. We know that it's a battle we must continue to wage against corruption, both in the private and the public sector, because they feed into each other. If you don't tackle it, that's why civil society is so important, including labor and business, in dealing with people who budget for corruption. Because there's no kickbacks that somebody has budgeted money to bribe somebody. So that's what we need to, that nexus between the private and the public sector in fueling corruption in the public service need to be disrupted. And part of disrupting it is the open tender bill, building ethics within the public service, both elected and the big section of the public service who are elected, appointed public servants. The issue of the Youth League, we want to reiterate that it was unfortunate because reports were sitting in departments, and it's not a report only about economic development. There are a number of forensic investigations which were done. The Premier, what he simply did is that went to ICU, can you assess these reports, indicate where disciplinary actions were supposed to be taken and not taken? Secondly, where criminal offences have happened. And in fact, the very MEC himself agreed with the Premier that in fact is the best way, because all MECs were consulted when this process happened, and the acting provincial chair has been keeping the provincial officials and the structures of the ANC up to date on measures to deal with corruption. We don't deal with corruption. It's important, so we don't accuse, and nobody is being accused. It's that look at this, come with a report and indicate. So that can be wrong. So when reports are assessed, it's not that you are accusing anybody of having. They must come up with a report, and there must be actions taken, because SIU doesn't charge people. It's the NPA which charges people. So when they come with the report, they then will be able to. The NPA can then act, working together with the SIU. The issue of Comrade Brian, our provincial working committee has made a statement very clear that the matter was started by the Integrity Committee in our province. It was not completed. The Integrity Committee, as we said in our statement, has met, in fact, last week to look at the matter and develop a plan on when to complete it. They will give a report to the constitutional structures of the organization for us to be able to act. Pending that, it becomes a difficulty to then make a determination, because a working committee is not a matter dealing with such issues. The Integrity Committee itself has to deal with it, and will then take a decision. We have not cancelled any determinations, because even if you stand for conference but a determination is made, then the ANC takes action. But you can't say somebody cannot actually be a leader on the basis before the Integrity Committee does. We also said that the law enforcement agencies in South Africa must actually complete the matter, where there's a court case which is started. Because at the moment, there's no criminal charges which have been opened. And that created that's why we called on our Integrity Committee to complete the matter, give us a sense on ethical and integrity issues in terms of the assessment, having engaged the comrade, and also the law enforcement agencies to charge the member. So if the member is not charged, it becomes very difficult, and it has delayed this matter. And we think it must be brought to a conclusion, because it will help us to make definite decisions as the organization. We have done it before. We will do it in the future. We have done that before, but we want to do it in a manner which also has integrity in it, and not being pushed by people who are hypocrites. We will take decisions. We have taken decisions on matters affecting our own members, not pushed by anybody, and we will do it. So the issue was the issue of when do we do it, and we think that if we have a sense from our report from our Integrity Committee, but also the issue of the law enforcement agencies. Our view is that we think they should have actually open charges on this matter, or if there are no charges, give a clarity or whether there are charges or not. As we said, let me deal with the two last issues. The specific on radical, for example, the ANC in our conference said we should talk about, and we say it in our statement, the management, the ownership, all those things have to be done. For example, trade unions must put on the agenda ownership of industries by workers and communities, and not companies which are not doing profit. The issues of ownership by workers in those industries must be put on the agenda. These are issues which were raised even in our conference about radical socio-economic transformation, because in the ANC the issue of social and economic always go together, because you can't transform the economy when you don't look at things like education, health. They always go together. So it's important that we look at various options, and the conference will look at implementation. Because we're not discussing policy now, we're discussing implementation. There is policy on radical socio-economic transformation, which was adopted in Mangaung and firmed up at Nasrec. We need to discuss, because Gauteng is the biggest center of the economy. Finance, the finance economy, insurance, all key sectors of the economy have a footprint in our province. For example, you can't have radical socio-economic transformation with fronting. There are laws against fronting, for example. Government and ourselves must look at the puppets who are prepared to front on behalf of others, and actually makes the issue of socio-economic transformation hollow. There must be consequences for people who front. Those are things we need to actually engage with DTI. Our government must engage with DTI in terms of ensuring that we identify the fronters, there are consequences, because the amendments to the to procurement have actually made it clear that fronting it's actually it's a criminal matter. The issue of the ANC as opposition, yes, we think that a notion that our opponents can govern better than us are daily being proven to be false, both in Tshwane and in Johannesburg. Our own members in the caucus of the ANC caucus in Tshwane and in Johannesburg have a full mandate to give our opponents a run for their money. Expose the rot, because you can't deal with corruption when you don't actually render services. You look at the city, everywhere what's happening. Joburg is dirty, townships are dirty, because people are saying they're dealing with corruption in employment of people who used to clean the city and our townships and informal settlement. Deal with that, but you cannot have a situation where things actually don't happen. You deal with corruption, but render services to the community. You don't employ people who don't have the minimum skills, and you question those who you find in the system who are overqualified, some of them. It can't be. Some of the public servants in municipalities have got more than what the minimum requirements are. But you see comedies in Tshwane of people who are deliberately employed who don't even meet minimum requirements. You have in situations in Johannesburg, so our own comrades in those caucus are continuing to expose. Joburg caucus has given a report to the public protector on what we say is basically raiding of resources in the city of Johannesburg to collapse it. Before 2016 elections, Joburg City Power had cash in at the bank of 1.6 to 1.8 billion. They now have a deficit in 2 years' time. And you must look at whether there are programs which have been expanded in informal settlements and townships to electrify. You'll find there's none. Joburg was rated high by rating agencies. There's a lot of doubt now. And the reasons people give were dealing with corruption. You collapse a city like Johannesburg and you tell us that you are dealing with corruption as a reason why the city should collapse. We are going to really confront. We are going to confront our opponents, the DA-EFF coalition, and our caucuses have clear mandates to do it. As long as there's no violence, it's peaceful, they are going to do it. And we are happy with the performance of our Joburg caucus, the Tshwane caucus, and the new leadership of Tshwane in confronting what is happening in that city. And we hope that you will also follow up the case of a bodybuilder who has been appointed there in Tshwane. It's a very interesting development. So I think it's we are going to look at it and how we are a governing party which is in opposition in Johannesburg, and that issue is going to be look how do we do it, because we have responsibilities nationally, provincially, and in other municipalities. It's a very important situation, but we are not going to leave our opponents who daily talk stories about being able to govern better than us, and we see the opposite on a daily basis in our communities.
Yeah, maybe the bodybuilder is going to beat us up. Yeah, now on the issue, I want to come back to this issue, the allegations against the MEC. For me, I have a problem because as the ANC, we take decisions resolving to act on corruption, irrespective of who is involved, whether it's an official or whoever it is. But when the Premier does that, as the person that is leading in government, we all make statements to say the Premier is trying to prevent so and so. It is not supposed to be a personal matter, because we have a decision as the ANC. And if the Premier is not implementing that decision, as the ANC will find it very hard to understand. So I think other issues have been raised by the peers. I'm not going to go back to those issues as to why we had to do these things, because there's a report already. And when we are acting on the report that is available, why should it be a problem in the first place? So I'm sure this thing, you'll find it very good just to ignore it now, because we've been explaining it from time to time. I think the PS has been very much hard or at pains to actually explain why this thing has been happening. But every time it keeps on coming back as if somebody is actually preventing somebody. But remember also, it is the branches that decide as to who must be elected. It's not the premier that decides as to I want you, I don't want you. It can't be correct. That's what is in the constitution, but also that is what is in the guidelines going to the conference. On the open tender bill, I'm not sure whether you're asking me in my capacity as a deployee in the GPL.
No. As treasurer. Okay. Because it's a financial bill.
Fortunately, as a treasurer, we take cues from the 2014 provincial conference that took this decision. The Gauteng government has implemented in terms of coming up with a bill. When it is sent to the legislature, the relevant committee, in this case it will be two committees, that must actually sit, look at the bill and make those comments or recommendations that must come before the House. But Conference 2014 has taken that decision. Already, we are already reporting on the work that we need to go and report to this coming weekend when we start with our conference to say things have been happening. I'm sure other issues are covered. And yeah.
Okay, so I will just round up. Look, I think there's no issue between myself and the Youth League. I just want to say that in the run-up to conferences, there will always be misunderstandings. I think we act on the basis of principle all the time, and our structures understand that when there's work to do in government, that work must be done. It can't wait for the ANC conferences to pass. That work needs to be done. As I say, there's really no bad blood between the Youth League and myself. From time to time, when the Youth League has issues to raise, I listen to them. And then in the ANC, you know, we are a very transparent organization. And I think you would know that in other organizations, people are not allowed to raise issues in the way we do. In the ANC, anyone can raise an issue. If there's a member of the ANC who's got a complaint, they raise it. And from where I stand, I always welcome that, even if it's criticism. A leader who can't take criticism is not worthy of being called a leader. So members of the ANC are free to criticize their leaders, and the leaders themselves have to be held accountable. So the things I do in government, ANC members must hold me accountable. The things I do in the organization, they must hold me accountable. I'm very happy with being accountable to structures of the ANC, but also to society. So and as you know, I get criticized sometimes when it's cloudy. There are people who criticize the premier. You know, sometimes when partners are not in talking terms, there are people who criticize the premier. It's like the premier is the one who's influencing partners not to be in good terms. Sometimes when children don't do what parents want, there are people who criticize the premier. I accept it as a calling that when you are a leader, you'll be criticized. If you worry yourself too much about being criticized, rather than whether what you are doing is something you believe in, and you are doing it conscientiously, you are not worthy of being a leader. If you would preoccupy yourself, worry about being criticized. And there are many structures. The alliance structures criticize me. Sometimes they don't have a press conference. I go to those meetings, Kwasatu criticizes me. So, and criticism strengthens you. So even the criticism of the Youth League strengthens any structure of the organization. The only thing is that we have cleared the air. So there's no issue about dealing with corruption. It's a fundamental issue of the ANC. The research pointed out the 2014 research, election research, in-house research, 2016 in-house research said ANC members think we are soft on corruption, and that when there are issues of corruption, we are not acting decisively. It is on the basis of that if you want to be in a leader, you have to act with conviction with conscientiousness, as long as you know what you are doing. It's not to prejudice people. And I don't believe that I can take decisions that prejudice people unfairly. I think in the Gauteng provincial government we are determined to make corruption is not an issue for the opposition in Gauteng. Dealing with corruption is not a matter for the opposition. In fact, the DA knows one of their greatest worries, even their own internal polling tells them, one of their greatest worries is that there's no issue that they can take the ANC on. Every issue that they would have used in previous election campaigns, they know that in this province, the ANC is on point. On every issue of concern to the public, they can't go around and say, but this issue and that issue. So they have sleepless nights. We don't. We don't have sleepless nights. That's why we introduced the open tender system. That's why the SIU needs to deal with cases that have been there where the Auditor General, every year the Auditor General says, in this department you didn't follow the procedures, and then investigate which official is responsible and hold them accountable. Every year, it's a matter of course. Every year. So in the past 4 years, we would have had every year the Auditor General says, this department, I can't give them a clean audit because they don't follow procedures. Go and institute an investigation, deal with and hold people accountable. So what do I do? Every year you have had stockpiles and stockpiles of lack of consequence management. So I went back, I decided last year that now let's just go back to all the forensic reports that have been instituted in the province. Let every department show the action they took out of those findings, and that they have implemented, and that there are people who, those responsible have been held accountable. What a noble thing to do. It's what that's what we should do all the time. And if it was not done over a period of time, and then it is being corrected, as we decided last year that we don't want the AG to always be calling us to say, your department did not discipline the officials who deviated from the procurement procedures. Or there are people who are disciplined, money has been lost to the state, and that money can't be recovered because they resign and go and work in another municipality or in another province. So that's really what this SIU not investigation, because it is not an investigation. The investigations were done by departments. I just pulled all the reports in my office, consolidated them, and say to the SIU, help us ensure that people can be disciplined, and where money is lost, help us to ensure that money is recovered, and where crime has been committed, help us to ensure that the people face the music. That's all we did. And ANC people understand this. So when we explain that to them, that's why I'm saying that, I'm saying that that issue, there's really no issue with the Youth League as things stand now. And that's why I emphasize that we who are in leadership, when people ask questions, it must not be me who reads a motive. I must be willing to go and explain. This is the reason we are doing it. I think the visit to industry, captains of industry, we have done a lot of work over the past 3 years at least. We have very strong, solid relations with industry by industry, with industry leaders. We are consolidating this. We have the capital equipment manufacturers, we have the food and beverages sector, we have the automotive sector, we have the ICT industry, we have the BPO sector. We've also been engaging with the mining sector in the West Rand. So in each of those, we look at employment. So what is it that a sector needs from the help from government to grow employment? Sometimes they need very limited support. Other things we can sort out. Others are national issues. So we are going to continue with that work we are doing. Stephen, we will continue with that work. One of it has yielded immediate results. We worked in 1 year, 2016 to 2017, we worked with the BPO sector. And in one cycle, 1 year, 5,000 jobs were created in the BPO sector in Gauteng, out of the engagement with them, out of supporting them, out of where they say we just need infrastructure. We want to open a call center in Soweto in the township and employ 400 people. Just give me a piece of land. If Nedbank or Standard Bank comes to us and say, we want to employ 400 young people in Gauteng, give us a piece of land there to open a call center. That's what a government should do. We should facilitate that. But we also say to the sectors, we also want to see empowerment. Where are black players? In your value chain and in your supply chains. Where are the township enterprises? You must empower them. So we do that as a matter of course, and I have not found resistance at all. We say this is radical economic transformation. With the capital equipment manufacturer, we say, where are the black enterprises? Why don't you give them opportunities for them to also manufacture capital equipment? And they have brought in some of the players there with the support of the IDC. So I am quite happy with that. I think the issue of health, I think is it Kabisile?
Yes.
The issue of health is good. Healthcare in Gauteng is in a serious crisis. We ourselves say it. Healthcare requires major interventions in this province. Our public health system is overburdened with many problems. Firstly, large numbers of people who are from outside the province, but also in the SADC region. It's overburdened with that. I have been on Mother's Day, I have been to a ward at Tshwane Central Health Center, and found in a ward, that maternity ward, I found the majority of the people who were giving birth in that ward were non-South Africans. And that's a typical example of the burden we bear with our health facilities. But there's also problems in the Department of Health, issues of corruption. We are confronting them. We're dealing with those head on. There's also issues of management and leadership in there. MEC, Dr. Gwen Ramukupa is also confronting those issues. Waste of resources, where resources have to be directed. So this is going to be a big issue. Health is going to be a big issue at our conference. There's no doubt about it. That will be attended to. Kabisile also asked the question about youth. You guys know by now that our TSEPO 1 million program, flagship program, has been very successful. We have 470,000 young people over 4 years, no, 3.5 years. We have been able to get 470,000 young people, equip them with the relevant skills, not just training for its own sake. The relevant skills linked to opportunities in various sectors of the economy. And many of those young people are now in permanent jobs. So that issue she was raising of youth and experience, we are tackling it head on. The legislature has just concluded in its own study that TSEPO 1 million is what South Africa needs. And that team in the legislature is made up of people also from opposition. They did their own study. They visited the center where we are working with Harambee to look at what we are doing, how we're empowering youth, how young people are getting jobs, not just internship programs. So TSEPO 1, that's why the statement says that this program must be upscaled. We need to reach 2 million young people in Gauteng. We have 2 million young people out of work and out of training institutions, basically unemployed. So this program has been seen by the legislature, this is on a non-partisan basis, as a successful program. So what she was raising there about the issue of experience is no longer an issue. We have tested it here in Gauteng, that young people don't need to have experience, but they need some relevant training linked to the work they they are going to do when they enter the labor market in the relevant sector. And we have pioneered this together with the YES initiative of the president. We can reach the 2 million young people over the next 5 years. May I just deal with, I think, where is Natasha?
Yeah.
And Bonolo. I think firstly the Ipsos survey, we take note of that. Because the ANC works like this. We very much look at polls. We don't dismiss them. When they are positive, we look at them. When they are negative, we also look at them. We're not like a party that when the polls do not favor them, they dismiss them. Like the DA. When the polls don't favor them, they say that no, the polls don't tell the truth. When they favor them, they are fine. In the ANC, we look at them, but we don't get excited about the polls. We know the critical question is to get to the people. And that's why our machinery is organized now. And this machinery of the ANC, branch level machinery, regional level machinery, and when we get out of our provincial conference, we will say 100% the ANC machinery is ready to get to the people. Where we govern, like we govern this province, those who are in government must not sleep like myself. We've got to deliver services. We've got to add all the programs which we said we need to deal with. Housing issues, the issues of the economy, the issues of youth, issues of women. We've got to get these things done, and none of us must be sitting in a position and doing nothing about this issue. So polling is important. We are busy as the ANC with our own internal polling. But the critical question often is not a preoccupation with the polls, but is to be able to know we are addressing the issues of concern to communities. Corruption. The economy needs to function. Jobs need to be created. The issues of access to land and access to housing. An education system that works. This conference is going to look a lot into our education system currently. There's the legendary mismatch. We now experience it more. Through TEPO 1 million, we know that a lot of young people who come out of the education system, we still need another year or so to prepare them for specific job opportunities. So our education system needs to be overhauled. So of course, we want a stable organization and a stable party. That's why we say to you, in this province, even if you may have a group of people in this region or that taking us to court, but these regional conferences and the significant work done in our branches give us this sense we are stable. And we are members of the National Executive Committee, myself and Comrade Hope. In our then we want the whole organization to be stable. We want the ANC everywhere. We are confident that our counterparts in KwaZulu-Natal will also have a successful conference. It's in our interest that the ANC is stable everywhere. In the Free State, the ANC must be stable. In the Northwest, the ANC must be stable, because that stability helps us to focus on the issues facing South Africans rather than internal issues. So if you're asking us about, we are doing everything in Gauteng to make sure issues of the internal affairs of the ANC are handled fairly, objectively, but decisively, so that they don't stand on our way from focusing on the issues facing South Africans. And we have absolute confidence in our President Ramaphosa. And we know that's the case across the country. When our colleagues in all the provinces speak in the National Executive Committee, they're saying, all of them, and the National Executive Committee says the National Conference has come and gone. We're now focusing on rebuilding the ANC, reorganizing it, renewing it, so that it can serve the people of our country and be preoccupied with their problems. That is the business of the ANC, to be preoccupied with the problems facing people rather than our own internal problems. And we're confident that we shall succeed in doing that. And lastly, organizational renewal. Natasha, you raised an issue about whether we will have concrete proposals. Yes, you see in our statement, and I know you don't have it, I'm sorry. You have been promised by Mr. Letale, you will get it. we are paying attention. What will be the key issues of renewal? The one is to place at the center of the organization ethics and integrity. That is non-negotiable. It's
Yes.
fundamental. That in our age, in this era, having gone through the problems we have gone through, we want ANC members. There will be integrity and ethics training also in our branches amongst ANC members. Not only those we send to government, but even when we run induction for branch leaders, our members have to understand questions of ethics and integrity. The second thing is that skills are so crucial. So we want to look at the organization and say, we cannot deliver radical socio-economic transformation. We can't do service delivery effectively if the skills level of ANC members leaves much to be desired. And that's why the statements say we want to invest substantially into the training of ANC members, so that we are not a pretentious organization. We don't say there's merit, we employ or deploy people on merit, when in fact in practice we know we have made mistakes. We know there are times when we have deployed people to responsibilities when they were not adequately prepared for. So Natasha, we say that going forward, you are not going to find in the ANC this people assigned responsibilities they have not been adequately prepared for. So I'm saying we are not pretentious. We're not a party that says we don't do decadal deployment, but in practice, that this thing that the DA is doing in Tswane, it just reveals that a party of double standards. In public they say this, but what do? They end up with a situation where they really have they employ unqualified people, and they justify it and say it's political appointment. In the legislature, they attack us about cadre deployment, and I always explain that the ANC's cadre deployment, a cadre is always someone trained for what they are going to be assigned to do. You can't send a soldier into the country to come and carry out operations when they have not been trained. You give them weapons. How can we have never done that before 1994 of assigning people responsibilities without training them? How can we do it when we are in government? But we admit that there are mistakes made in municipalities across the country, in provinces, sometimes of appointing people who are unqualified, and it has a bearing on service delivery. That's what the National Development Plan says we must fix. We need a professional public service. We need competent and qualified people. But also in our own political deployments, we emphasize ANC members in Gauteng, you must invest in your own education.
Most of us.
So you must invest. This is becoming a fact of life. It's just that you don't see how many people graduate in the ANC, because the ANC has had professors and doctors for almost a century. But a small party, every time someone graduates there, it's a big news. In the ANC, actually, it is bad news that education had taken a backseat and others have been behaving as like ANC is anti-intellectual. The ANC has had, right from its formation, has had foremost South African intellectuals. Pixlika Isakaseme.
The nephews.
We have had the foremost South African intellectuals. In this province, we have. If you go to branch meetings of the ANC in Gauteng, our provincial executive committee has got people with PhDs there and professors. We've got 2 people with PhDs and a professor. So that means 3 people in our provincial executive committee. So we want to bring that to the fore. If you are not educated and you don't invest in your own skills, you must feel inadequate. But we also say we're looking for young people with talented young people. We're going to be going to universities. We also want our youth league, the youth league of the ANC. So these renewal issues you are saying, they will be there on the agenda. The youth league of the ANC must be able to attract the best and most talented young people in all fields, in sports, in academia, in the arts. Those young people, as we see in other youth organizations, and the Youth League must be the champion of education. Like as it was formed in 1943, the champion of education amongst the youth. So the issues of renewal will include the skills question, integrity issues, issues of ethics, as we have outlined here, but also we want depth in the ANC to rebuild and reorganize our branches around the problems of the people. So every branch of the ANC must be assessed around its impact, where it is located, what are the problems, the main problems of the people, and the ANC must be in the forefront. So these are the key issues. Yes. Are we taking renewal forward? Yes. This is the place in this conference. And we want the youth, by the way. Let me go back to the question of the youth. That's why there's no issue about the need for young people to be given responsibilities. We want a PEC that will be having young people rejuvenated, the most talented amongst the youth, the most committed amongst the youth must also be in our PEC. They are in our RECs. We need that fresh blood. We must invest in these young people so that they understand what the ANC's core mission is. So yes. So renewal is central to what we will discuss there. I better not talk about the failures of the DA. I think the provincial secretary dealt with it. The story that the DA governs better, every day it is exploding. That myth is exploding in our very eyes. Who would have thought that the DA will defend the appointment of somebody without qualification? Two, not one, two people. We had a problem of Saudi at the SABC. South Africa was attacking the ANC as if now we have two Saudis. And you journalists are not as hard on them as you would have been. If it was the ANC, I tell you, you would have been very, very hard on us. If it was to say somebody is unqualified, and the justification is that it's a political appointment. There is no such a thing that a political appointment. I have people I appoint politically, but even those people it has to be in accordance with what experience they bring. What have they done which matches what I'm assigning them to do? In that, if it's bodybuilding, yes, maybe the mayor of Tshwane does need a bodybuilder in his office, but I don't know what that the bodybuilder does there. I don't know what service delivery is required from a bodybuilder. Of course, we do need bodybuilders. They are human beings. But I don't know if we need them in mayor's offices.
He was robbed.
He
was robbed the other day, so
we need someone to
But how should that be? Can that be called a political appointment? So from where we are, I think we are. The DA has got challenges about its ability to deal with problems. Look at the water, the Hammanskraal water problem. Now the Hammanskraal people want me to come there and intervene. It's not only the Hammanskraal water problem. We have had a disaster in Soshanguve. 5 children died in Soshanguve after the light collapsed on them. The lamp post that the community has been saying must be fixed. Up to that point, the DA has done nothing about that matter. The community there all the time phone me, Premier. The municipality has not followed up on our issues. If it was the ANC that something like that happened and we have not done anything about it, it will be in the news every day. But because it's the DA, they have their honeymoon. Yeah, they have their honeymoon. Very little would be said. I'm not talking about you guys. I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about those who, even civil society. Civil society would have done something about that matter, that the municipality has not done something. Look at this matter in Johannesburg. the collapse of the bridge, that collapse of the bridge, we have a group, families that are affected. I visited them, the Greystone Bridge. That matter is dragging and dragging. We are allowing big business to get away with, because they can appoint lawyers, spend lots of money in defending themselves, but you have affected citizens. 2 young people in particular, apart from the one who died. These 2 young people are not able to work now. They were injured, they were traumatized by that. All the time their families phone me. Premier, we raised this matter with you. The city of Johannesburg and Murray and Roberts are not doing anything about it. And I'm telling you, if this matter of the Greystone Bridge collapse, if it was something that the ANC was sitting on and no progress was happening, it would be a big issue. But you know what? The ANC is at peace with being held accountable. But hold everybody to account. People ran for office. They said they want to be mayors. If they are not ready for being held accountable, they should go somewhere else and do something else. Every time they are criticized, they complain. I never complain when I'm criticized by the opposition. But Herman Mashaba, every time he's criticized by the ANC, it's like, you know what? He has never been criticized, and maybe that is true. He can't take criticism. If a journalist or a newspaper just writes a story, he can't take criticism from that. What are you doing in the kitchen if you cannot withstand the heat? You get out of the kitchen if it is too hot there, and it is hot in the kitchen. Take criticism and accept accountability. And that's my attitude. Whether it's internal ANC members who criticize me, if you are a leader and you are not willing to be criticized, don't stand for position of leadership. I want to thank you that you hold us accountable. You hold us accountable. You do that, Sidi. Mm-hmm. I see you looking at me like this. You hold us accountable.
Some inconsistency, sorry.
You hold us accountable. Please hold everybody accountable. That's all I'm saying.
But you just said not us 5 minutes ago.
No, please hold us accountable as well. Okay. So we as the ANC, we are ready for 2019 elections. We don't want to take the people for granted. We have learned. If there's something we have learned, 2016, 2014, when people say, don't do this, or you are arrogant, or you are defending wrongdoing, we have learned. We must never tell the people to go to hell. When they say, this was wrong, this is wrong, we have learned as the ANC. Never dismiss the concerns of the people. When they raise those issues, we are an ANC coming out of Nazareth that wants to humble itself to our people. So whether it's hikes on fuel hikes, each issue that people raise, we want to take up those issues. We may not have the final answers, but we will not keep quiet. And we will be on the side of the people. We will never dismiss, never again. Sidi, never again will we dismiss people when they raise issues about the ANC and then try to protect wrongdoing. Thank you. Are we done?
Yes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I think,
but guys, no, but I've asked for one more which is not available.
Okay.
And I've put my hands up during the Q&A. Unfortunately,
I'll allow only one last question. Then
some members of the media.
We're wrapping up. This is the last question. Then we're wrapping up.
Don't ask
me. What Elvis here from eNCA. One of the questions that's come to my mind is the issue around coalition governance. Just before the ANC's Nazareth conference, the subcommittee chairperson on the legislature and governance, Ayanda Dodo, mentioned that there should be a document that looks at the standard minimums, which will articulate which type of parties the ANC goes into a coalition with. Is the party going to be discussing issues of coalition at this conference? is it not pertinent to discuss, considering that there could be a window of opportunity to probably win over the EFF as well, or other parties within the local government spheres?
Yeah. I think the National Conference itself accepted that the 2016 elections gave us a scenario of coalitions and coalitions which were formed. You all know that they decided to form, even in Joburg, the biggest political party in terms of votes is the ANC in Johannesburg. But they chose not to consider that fact that even if there was no 50% plus one, in terms of just votes, in Tshwane, the second biggest political party in terms of votes is the ANC. But people then cobbled up some funny coalitions. Yes, ANC obviously will look at the minimums. There are things we will not do. I mean, you saw what happened at Nelson Mandela itself. The ANC said the better choice is for general elections to be called, and they must go to ANC must go to elections. But ANC doesn't dismiss a concept of coalition. We are in a coalition in Ekurhuleni with 4 political parties there, and you know the absence of others in that coalition. So it's not we welcome coalitions, but it's not unconditional, free for all coalition, as long as everybody is there. Sometimes it's actually better to be in opposition and win support in a general election. So I think that's the sense in the ANC, that it's not power at all costs. If it means you don't have to actually be in government, run government, you become an opposition, as we did in Tshwane and Johannesburg. And work with various political parties, even in those councils, which are prepared to support our own policies. So the ANC is open to coalition, but it's not coalition at all costs. So there will be a discussion on how do you consolidate the perspectives coming from the National Conference, our own current situation in Gauteng, having been in opposition in the 2 metros, being in a coalition in Ekurhuleni itself. How has that worked, and the experience from that coalition? So we don't reject coalitions as the ANC. But we prefer, obviously, to be a majority in terms of getting the what people call 51% in an election.
And maybe just to say that a coalition that will not help us to implement our vision of the country we want is something we can do without. We rather be in opposition than be in government and not be able to implement our program for radical socio-economic transformation and fundamental change of South Africa's colonial structure. If we go into coalition with a party that doesn't want that type of change, we will not go into coalition. If we have to go in any of our municipalities currently, if we were to get into coalition, it will be with a party that shares our long-term vision substantially. There may be other things that we disagree on. That's what the parties would do. But we would not go into a coalition with a party that wants colonialism, or that wants to rationalize colonialism and apartheid. We will not go into that. We rather be in opposition than be in power for its own sake. Because what is it that we want to do when we are in power? We want change. We want fundamental change. We don't just want change as the word. We want fundamental change. So that's the basis on which we will identify anyone in a municipality or in a provincial government. Otherwise, if the people don't give us the confidence, they have no confidence in us, we go into opposition and use that time to learn. Like we have used time in Johannesburg and in Tshwane to learn, to look at our own mistakes, and to say to ourselves that we are not more important than the people, and get our members to understand in both in Johannesburg and in Tshwane, to say that the reason we are here is because we took the people for granted. So if we end up in a situation where we don't have the majority, we will accept to go into the opposition benches. We'll go back to the drawing board. That's what we are doing in Johannesburg and in Tshwane. And I think we're very confident that in Tshwane and in Johannesburg, we've gone back to communities. Communities are finding, they are warming up again to the ANC to say, we can see that you are serious now about correcting yourself. And we are serious about correcting ourselves. In a democracy, being in government and being in opposition is part of the nature of politics. Nothing unusual. And if we are not elected, we will accept that we are not elected and go back to the drawing board.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for affording us an opportunity to just explain ourselves. This concludes our briefing. And just as a matter of note, the speech or the statement is outside together with a copy of the draft program to give you a sense of what the program would look like. Just bear in mind that there might be changes on the program. It's just for your guidelines as you prepare for conference. And I hope that most of you are in this room, you have already accredited to cover conference, because you won't be able to come through to the conference venue if you are not accredited. If you are not, maybe we'll just sort it out after this meeting. I'm not opening up hands. If you are not, just deal with it immediately outside. If you are not yet accredited. It's a big deal.
It allows you to apply for jobs. I know you don't